Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1990 film Resurrection. This is one of the Vinegar Syndrome releases that I got during their 10 for 10 sale. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a deal. It's a steal for 10 bucks. This is a fun film. And I'm going to do something with this film I've never done with a film before. I'm giving it a hybrid rating. Usually I'll do two ways, like as in the pantheon of all films, like as a straight up film. And then I'll also do is so bad it's good. But this film is confusing to me because, and that's why I'm going to do the hybrid rating, because at times I feel like, oh yeah, it's a so bad it's good film. And then at other times I was like, there's actually stuff about this that are it's like legitimately good. And I'm so engaged and the pacing is so good and it's fun. And like, so I'm doing the hybrid rating at the end. So stick around for that. Obviously this release version is wonderful because, you know, Vinegar Syndrome, they always do a great job with their releases. So let's get into this one. Directed by Russell Mulcahy, who also did Highlander, Highlander 2, The Quickening, Ricochet, The Shadow, Tales from the Crypt, Resident Evil Extinction, and Razorback, which, if you haven't seen Razorback, definitely see that. From a visual standpoint, super interesting. The story, not the greatest, but it is an interesting film. I do have a review on my channel if you have seen it or you want to. Written by Brad Mirman, who also wrote Highlander, The Final Dimension, Crime Spree, Forsaken, and Body of Evidence. And story by the main actor, Christopher Lambert, which I'm going to tell you right now. Christopher Lambert is one of those actors who sometimes he really does a good job, and sometimes it's that so bad it's good performance, and his acting is just like over the top. And he oscillates between that throughout this entire film, which I like. I mean, that's part of the reason that I was having this issue of like, how do I rate this thing? But yeah, so obviously stars Christopher Lambert, who has been in a lot of films, but most notably Highlander, Mortal Kombat, The Hunted, Beowulf, Bloodshot, and one that I love that I don't know if people have seen, Mean Guns, which also has Ice-T in it. That's a movie I fell in love with as a kid, like at a relative, well, not a kid, like I think it was like when I was in high school or something. So at a younger age, but I loved that film. Actually purchased it from my local video rental store, VHS rental store, because it wasn't renting. So I was like, can I buy this? And they're like, let me check the last time it was rented. Yeah, you can buy this. So I was like, oh, sweet. So I still have it over there in my closet. Anyway, the leg cutting sequence in this film was actually cut down in order for them to get an R rating. Now, I'm assuming what I've seen in here was not the cut version because that's not what Vinegar Syndrome does. They always put out the original versions of films. So that's a gnarly scene. I see why they had to cut it down to get an R-rated rating. Apparently it was going to be NC-17 otherwise. It went straight to DVD in the US, but had theatrical releases in Europe, Asia, and Australia. Very interesting. I don't know why it didn't get a theatrical release in the US. Like, 7 was very popular, and obviously this is a 7 ripoff, so I feel like people would have gone for it, you know? Immediately, the dialogue is terrible. It is so curt and awkward. I do feel like you kind of settle into that style of writing, but the dialogue's not very well written, to be honest. At certain times, it feels fine and realistic, but like I said, you just kind of end up settling into it after a certain amount of time. And that's part of the whole, like, so bad it's good aspect. The first victim looks pretty gruesome, and that points to what you're going to be set up for with the film, thankfully. The practical effects are awesome. I love the practical effects. They went really hard with the gruesome factor in this film, which I think really increases its value, like watch value for someone like myself. Did not expect that going into it, but yeah, I love that about it. You do have to love the ridiculously over-the-top music when they reveal in the beginning the kind of like blood-painted "He's Coming" that's on the window in the first crime scene. It's just like so over the top. It's so screaming at you. It says so bad it's good. Like off the bat, like so much about it says so bad it's good. But then you start settling into the film and you're like, there's some legitimately good stuff here. I don't know. It's weird. So Prudhomme, Lambert's character, has the typical relationship with the police captain. He's a loose cannon and the chief hates him, but he needs him. that whole old, tired cliche thing. I mean, there are a lot of things in this film that are kind of like old and tired and been used before and are ripped directly from the film Seven, but they throw in enough of their own stuff and their own twists that it keeps it interesting, especially for your first watch. Like, you don't fully know where it's going to go, and it does go to some places that you're kind of like, yeah, that's kind of wild. I appreciate that. Man, Prudhomme turns on his wife, and quick, when she wants to talk about the case. He could have been more nice about that one. It's this thing where he's just like, I don't want to talk about it. And she's like, oh, why not? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And you're just like, I mean, it does give you the idea that there are problems at home, obviously, which it's supposed to. But yeah, it just seemed kind of funny, like that quick turn. The killer has surgical precision. You hear that all the time when they say it. In the beginning, you're like, ah, yes, of course, because it's like so many other serial killer films. He has surgical precision. He's someone who knows what he's doing, which he didn't end up having any like real training in that, though. It was a little bit red herring. Hollingsworth is annoying with all of his joking around, and that it's not even close to being funny. That's the other thing. So going back to the whole dialogue problem, yeah, all these jokes they end up throwing into the film, not funny. The only joke that ends up being funny is the one that Prudhomme ends up laughing at that wasn't a joke. And it was just the situation of it that ends up being funny about it. So I found that kind of funny. I do love how Prudhomme grills the head of the botanical garden about their security. He's acting kind of like overly aggressive, and the guy makes a really great point. He's just like, we have plants. Like, we don't assume people are going to come in and like steal plants or like vandalize it, or, you know, he's like, we have a wall outside. That's about it. So just another one of those nice little fun moments. The backstory of Prudhomme losing a child seems kind of just thrown at you in a sense. It does make you wonder if it's really going to end up mattering. I mean, they try to make it matter in the film, but it doesn't really matter that much because we don't really care about it because it doesn't add anything to the story, really. I mean, there's a little bit that comes in at the very end with the whole baby being dangled over the top of the building scene, which I'll talk about that when I get to it. But, yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's just kind of like, we got to give a backstory somehow to this guy. Like, he's got a tortured past. Also cliche. Oh man, the headless dude on the toilet. At first I was like, did he get killed while he was taking a dump? Because he's butt naked. But then they tell you that like, oh no, he was killed. He was hung up over here and, you know, drained of blood, and then he was put on the toilet. I don't know why they put him on the toilet. It's just kind of weird. But it was funny. Like, it made me laugh when I saw it. I'm just like, naked headless guy on a toilet. Did he die on the crapper? Was he decapitated on the crapper? That's a pretty crazy image. It should have been that. They should have gone that route. Hollingsworth does make a good point that nobody saw the guy come in, cut off a dude's head, and walk out with the head. While it's kind of, you get the idea that it's a relatively populated building. Like, they're coming in and there's people just kind of like all over the place. So, good point, Hollingsworth. Probably the only time I really liked him. Although, acting-wise, that actor did a pretty solid job with his role. It's just, his character wasn't written well. His dialogue, you know, already touched on the dialogue stuff. That wasn't great. I do love the scene of Prudhomme writing out simple addition math problems. Where he's like, 1 + 1 + 9 = 11. And then he has like another one, and it's all pluses. There's no actual reason to be writing it down. It's literally like he's not smart enough to do 1 + 1 + 9 in his head. And that's absurd. Like, that points to the whole, like, so bad it's good aspect of the film. And it's something I laughed at. I love that. Once Prudhomme reveals the whole religious connection for all the deaths, you definitely know it's a Seven ripoff. You're suspecting it, you're kind of feeling it, but then once that comes up, you're just like, 100% Seven ripoff. The scenes of Prudhomme and his wife end up being the worst by far, but they're also kind of funny for that same reason. Like, their relationship doesn't feel real. Like, the way they interact, like, the acting isn't great. Like, yeah, it's awkward and not great, but ends up adding to the charm of the so bad it's good aspect. Prudhomme basically praising the killer to Hollingsworth in the diner was kind of an odd thing. I didn't really understand that whole sequence, where he's just like, this guy's just like super smart. Like, you got to respect the fact that he's like killing people and leaving no evidence behind. But then he left evidence behind at the end. Like, there were actually like fingerprints. I don't know. It was just kind of a weird scene that seemed like, okay. Oh man, how about the severed leg scene? So much blood squirting, and it looks really, really gnarly. Again, practical effects awesome. The kills, well, you're usually seeing them after the fact. This is the rare one where you don't. But the kills look really gnarly, great practical effects on it, and I just could not believe like how much of like the squirting blood they had. And Prudhomme is then like drenched in this dude's blood when it's over. Obligatory chase scene after the severed legs victim is found and dies. Yes, you always have to have those chase scenes. That's one of a few that they end up with in the film. So I was just like, okay, yeah, here we go. You gotta go up the stairs. You gotta go all the way to the top of the roof. He's gotta jump from the rooftop. Yeah. I did like the killer's gag when Hollingsworth ends up being dressed like him. And I liked even more after he gets shot and Prudhomme's over there and he's just like, no, oh no, oh no. Like, that acting from Christopher Lambert is just like, that's what I live for. Like, that is gold. That is my jam right there. I love that. But I will say, that whole gag, there's no way he would have had time for that. Like, Prudhomme was running after him. He had the time to, like, undress Hollingsworth. Like, he tased him, and then he has time to, like, undress him and then dress him in his clothes and then get dressed in his clothes. Or maybe he was naked. I don't know. They don't show that part. But I don't know. There wasn't the time for that, for sure. But I like the scene. I mean, the captain has a good point when he basically tells Prudhomme that he's not the only one on the force. This is when he's basically like, look, you're too close to this. It's affecting you too much. Your partner just got shot. He's going to lose his leg. You need to go home. But he's like, I'm the only one who can solve this. Everyone else here is an idiot, is what he's acting like. So I did like that the captain's like, look, you see all these people out there? They all work here. They're all good at their jobs. Like, it's not just you, buddy. So that was cool. Lambert's outburst in the diner with the FBI agent at this point, actually the killer, is funny. It actually reminds me a lot of an outburst from Tim Robinson from the show I Think You Should Leave. So when that happened, and since it reminded me of that, I, through numerous points of the rest of the film, was like picturing Tim Robinson delivering Christopher Lambert's lines, and that film would be great. I really need someone to remake this film, but have Tim Robinson be it, or at least do a trailer for it, like remake a trailer and have Tim Robinson be Christopher Lambert. Oh man, that could be amazing. The killer's going after Prudhomme's wife. Seven ripoff. 100%. If you didn't know by then you know. Real quick, pause for horror hydration. My apologies. The Prudhomme meltdown when he finds Jenny dead but thinks it's his wife is even better than the meltdown he has over Hollingsworth in the alley. Love that scene. Laughed pretty hard. Again, that's my Christopher Lambert moment that I love. Those types. There is a solid little twist to it with the character of Bresler making the tape that they thought featured the voice of the killer. I did like that, and he ends up being a guy who's blind. He was just paid $50, and he was just like, yeah, I made the tape. It's $50. So I did like that kind of like red herring in there. That was nice. I knew it. The FBI agent is actually the killer. They made him way too creepy, and the FBI doesn't actually just pop up and say, oh, I'll give you a hand with this. They show up and they take over. At least in films. I'm not talking about real life. I'm talking about films like this. When the FBI shows up, they're not just like, hey, I'm here if you need me. I'll help you out. You're in the lead. They come in and they take control. And then there's this whole, like, the police force versus the FBI. Ooh, they hate each other, but they're working together, you know? So that's why I knew it from the get-go. I was like, the introduction of this guy's a little weird. Probably the killer. I did laugh when the killer coughed to cover up loading and then cocking his gun when he was in the bathroom at the train station. By the way, coughing would not cover up those sounds. Definitely not. And I think the ears of the police officers who were physically in the bathroom with him at that time would have heard them. Just saying. They do build some good tension, I will say, when they're after the killer at the end. and actually a few other times throughout the film. So that's another aspect of this, why I'm doing a hybrid rating. There are legitimate, like, good things at play here with the film. One of the other things, the key things being pacing, man. Pacing is so good in this film. Like, it just goes. And it's like, with credits, it's like an hour and 47 minutes. Like, the fact that it moves as fast as it does is kind of cool, in my opinion. Actually, very cool for someone like me who likes good pace. I did laugh at the part of the train station chase scene when Prudhomme was running on the, I call them baggage trailers. You know, the ones like the little golf cart things are pulling like all the trailers with the baggage. Like, he like jumps up on top of him. He's like running on top. I was just like, it's so like unnecessary, but like, it's funny. I laughed. I enjoyed it. The scene when the guy gets attacked on the stairs when he comes home made me nauseous because of all that camera movement. That's one of the things I really don't like about this film is there's a lot of like very aggressive kind of like free roaming camera movement that ends up going on. And it's at its peak at that scene. And it legitimately made me feel a bit nauseous. You could not see what was going on. Like, that is too much. I understand trying to make it like a little bit rough, a little bit hectic to kind of capture the experience of the scene from the perspective of the victim. But it's too much. You cannot tell what was going on. Made me nauseous. Although I do love the fact that they felt like they had to show him peeing himself, the victim. Another one of those little bits that's like, yes, so bad it's good. I love that. Just like, we got to show this guy pee his pants. Come on. The cobbled together Christ on a cross body. Gross, but great. That's what I mean. Again, practical effects outstanding. That's what they chose to depict on the slipcover, and then also the regular cover, but I flipped it to the original because I don't want just the same thing, which that's a terrible original cover, let's all be honest. And also the design of the killer's mask, like, also looks terrible. That's like a broke-ass killer, in my opinion. Not sure why they thought they needed the baby stealing aspect of the film, but I did find the scene of the baby being dangled over the ledge of the building very funny. At first I'm just like, why are we then extending this film out so he can go after this baby? So I was just kind of like, I don't get this. But then they have the baby dangling scene where he's literally just standing there holding this newborn baby by the leg over the ledge. And I was just like, this is wild. This is ridiculous. This is just like icing on the cake, so bad it's good type. Love it. In this film, they find all the clues so fast that it's ridiculous, but that does really help with the pacing. So it's this thing where I'm just like, man, they just keep finding the clues and like making these wild guesses about the killer, and they're correct like every single time. It's just like, oh, now this means this and this means this. Other than, you know, Prudhomme having to do all that long addition on a piece of paper. But yeah, so it just seems real ridiculous, the fact that they get things so quickly, but it really helps with the pacing, so I'm fine with it. The roaming camera work, again, at times is too much, but at times it actually is kind of funny, and it does kind of add to that kind of so bad it's good feel that it has from time to time. I do need to make this comment. Rick Fox's acting, oof. There is some acting in this that isn't great, but Rick Fox like gets the Razzie Award for acting in this film. Like, it is awful. Like, every time he was on screen, I was just like, cut this one. Let's go. There were a lot of darker scenes in this film, but they did a great job with lighting. That is something that I think I've seen a lot of, filmmakers nowadays kind of, I don't know if struggle with or just not care about or make a very poor intentional decision to like have darker scenes and you can't see anything. So I was very cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of darker scenes in this film, but you can see everything you need to. They did a great job with lighting. It is like spot on, in my opinion. Proof. I mean, it's really funny for me to point to this film in particular, but this is a great example of that for filmmakers who are going to put out films that have dark scenes. And the last thing I wanted to say is, did anyone notice that the name Prudhomme gets pronounced many different ways in this film? It's like Prudhomme, it's Prudhomme, it's Prudhomme. They didn't nail down one. I think maybe for that reason they should have just simplified it and been like, it is Detective Smith. This is John Smith, or John Becker, or you know what I mean? Like, Prudhomme is a very specific last name, and obviously not everyone said it the same way, so it's kind of weird, but small thing. Anyway, like I said, out of 5 stars with half stars in play, my hybrid rating, 3.5 stars. So like half of that is actually a good film, and half of that is like a so bad it's good film. 3.5 stars for Resurrection. I really enjoyed this one. It's fun. I cannot wait to watch these special features, and they still have it available on Vinegar Syndrome for anyone looking to pick it up. It's not for $10 at the moment. That was during the sale, but I think it's like $22.99 or something like that at the moment. I do recommend it if you like this film. I mean, it's worth owning. This is one I'll show to friends. I will proudly show this to friends, and it's really making me want to watch more Christopher Lambert films. It really is, particularly Mean Guns. Got to say that. Anyway, thanks everyone for checking this out. Go ahead and put in the comments your thoughts on this film. Give me like a sentence or two about what you like or don't like about it. Do me also a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate that. I really, really do deeply. Also hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 3 or 4 a week, which, you know, I think is a good amount. But regardless, I thank you very much for checking out this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.